Memory transcription subject. Governor Tava of the Venal Republic. Date. Standardized human time. December 9th, 2136. Negotiations with the Durten homogeneity were ongoing, though the last 3 days all ended the same. The moment Ambassador Noah brought up lending their auxiliary support of ships to humanity, the galaxy's other sapient avians balked. The Durten were recognizable for their curved bills, which stuck out like Pinocchio's nose, according to my beloved human. They didn't take kindly to the UN suggestion that those bills likely evolved to spear prey. The Durten also told me that a Venal presence on the call was unnecessary, and shut me out of today's meeting. I would have rather been with Noah at the governor's mansion now, but I trusted him to take care of himself. I simply knew that if the talks fell through, the Terran ambassador would lump all of the blame on his shoulders. The United Nations needed to turn one of the military alliance-only voters. That constituency contained most of the Federation's powerhouses. Earth can't fully commit to offensive action until we have the resources to support such maneuvers. Zhao would never run the risk of his homeworld being counterattacked. Visiting the rescue's hospital offered a way to pass a few hours. It distracted me from my inability to get the endangered Thafki to send a representative, or to get the Durten to do anything but chit-chat. Were all these diplomatic efforts wasting the Terran's time? There were only so many times humanity would extend a hand in friendship and have it slapped away. At this point, it was for practical reasons that they tried it all. Glim had stabilized, and was busy drafting talking points for Noah. The human ambassador had another unenviable task on his plate. We planned to reveal the Gaian's true identity to all of the saved Venal tonight. There would be mass panic once it was apparent that the masked bipeds were predators. This was the trial run for our larger ambitions with the other races, rescued from Shaz's sector. I had taken it upon myself to monitor Scifi, who'd remained an emotional wreck despite the Gaians leaving her alone. My concern for Sarah also lingered. The female human had been absent from the facility, ever since Glim snapped at her to leave. But now, I spotted the curly-haired scientist taking aggressive strides down the hall, and carrying a massive stack of papers. Her binocular eyes were frantic. "Slow down! Take a breath!" I rushed out of the security room and grabbed Sarah's forearm. "You're back here? What are you doing?" The Terran waved her postcard-sized papers. "I went to the Venal Museum of History, photographed every nook and cranny, and annotated the human exhibit with sticky notes. Thought it might cheer Scifi up to see our old passion." "That was very thoughtful of you. But, Sarah, I know how much you'll have to work with others. Scifi isn't one of your projects, okay? You're not responsible for her recovery. I just want to help. I know she would be too scared to visit with human visitors." "What about you? You're scared to visit her because you know that she'll look at you like you're a monster." "Tava, you won't talk me out of bringing this to her. I'll drop it off and leave, but I must be sure it gets to her. After terrifying a Venal who's been traumatized half to death, the least I can do is give her something that makes her happy. The whole terror aspect is not your fault. Yet it feels like it is. I'm giving this to Scifi. Then I'll go with you, Sarah. Please, just keep back and let me do the talking. I'm not trying to silence you, but she won't hear a word you say." The Predator took a shaky breath and nodded in agreement. I pried away a chunk of her photos, lightening the load she carried. It was a sincere gesture on Sarah's part to recall Scifi's request to visit the museum. However, with what we knew now, it was for the best that the Gaians hadn't allowed the rescues to roam free. Scifi wasn't thrilled about the Terran invasion of Venal Prime. Little had shaken her dispirited state of mind. Perhaps seeing exhibits that existed before her captivity would offer comfort. It was a slice of something familiar which had once fascinated her. I remembered her eagerness to seek grants from me when I'd been our planetary ambassador. Scifi might learn to love our exhibits in time. Maybe she'll appreciate humanity's nuance and complexity, Sarah assured herself. My ear flick was non-committal. "We'll see. Let's go together." I thought it would be best to discard the photos of the human corridor, since it may evoke a negative reaction. Scifi seemed like the type to see her museum as defiled, or to see an objective look at the Terrans as a biased undoing of her pure evil work. There was no polite way to tell a friend not to showcase her species, though. My advice was to demonstrate humanity's good side to HFY. It's possible Noah passed my message along. I should have been more careful with my words. Sarah fitted her mask over her face and extended her wrist in my direction. Catching on, I wrapped my prosthetic tail around her arm. Neither Terran astronaut complained that the metal replacement didn't offer the soft, bushy comfort of my natural appendage. It was the sentiment that counted to the predators. I was grateful that they didn't treat me different for my disfigurement. My paw wrapped around HFY's door handle, and I pushed my way inside. Sarah stood beside me, all but hiding behind my shorter figure. The predator's pulse had quickened beneath my metal tail, which its touch sensors picked up on. The Venlil rescue receded into a pillow, freezing at the guy's appearance. I think HFY hoped Sarah had departed for good. "Hi, HFY," the Terran scientist said softly. "I'm sorry for bothering you now, and I'm sorry for my poorly thought-out exposure therapy. I'm not trying to scare you." HFY didn't reply, but I could see her teeth chattering in her jaw. My tail uncoiled from Sarah's arm, and I gave her an encouraging ear flick. The human approached with cautious steps, clasping her photos with tentative fingers. I set the pictures I'd removed from the stack on the mattress, and the scientist placed the rest atop these ones. I gave Sarah a pointed look, reminding her that I should handle conversation. "HFY, Sarah did something very nice for you. She knows you love the Museum of History, so she photographed the entire building for you. You can see everything that's there now, just like it was in the old days." "I don't want anything from a human," the Venlil coughed. "Oh, come on. I know you want to see the museum, and you don't want to be around human visitors to do it. It's up to you whether you want to look at the photos, but now you can." Manipulation. Stop. "Nobody's doing anything with ill intent toward you. We just want to help you. See? We're leaving now." I reaffixed my towel to Sarah's delicate wrist and backed out of the room with her in tow. HFY pulled the covers over her face, waiting for the guy to recede from sight. My heart felt heavy as we retreated into the hallway. The human slumped her shoulders, and I recognized that pouting posture from Noah. It would be harsh to tell the predator my honest opinion, but I thought HFY was a lost cause. There was no way of making progress with someone who refused to listen. The historian was entrenched in her opinions. As much as my next words would sting, I couldn't go on seeing a friend subject himself to pain. There was nothing any human could do to win certain rescues over. "Sarah, I think that you should stop visiting HFY. Nothing good is coming of you seeing her, and it's obvious she hates humans," I stated in a firm voice. "There's no changing what's been done. I can find another rescue to reassign you." "I don't want another rescue!" Sarah stomped her foot in frustration, pitch climbing frantically. "I want my friend that I played Jenga with and hugged before she went to sleep back. I lied to her. I hurt her. And she can't even look at me." "You don't want another rescue? It doesn't have to be a Venlil then. Listen, you can meet new and exciting species, the ones the Mazics are facilitating. A scientist like you could brainstorm strategies to rebuild the Thafki's population, or perhaps be the bigger person that aids the Kokotl. It's ironic that we saved the species that led the extermination fleet from the cattle farms. It's sure funny. You know there'll be a shortage of Terran volunteers. Your help will be quite needed and—" Emergency raid sirens resounded through the hospital, a tone that every Venlil knew far too well. Sarah seemed familiar with the warning, and her eyes stretched wide in alarm. Panic swelled in my heart as I reached for my holopad. Dozens of messages from General Cam lit in my feed. I should have been keeping an eye on my notifications. "Inbound signatures of an indiscernible make heading for Venlil Prime. Our new defenses should thwart them with ease, but there's the possibility of a few missiles slipping through," Cam wrote in his first message. "We don't have the ship garrison we once had, despite humans standing at the helm. All civilians should be sent to bunkers." Sarah leaned her masked head over my shoulders and stared straight at the holopad. Humans were wonderful at focusing on what was in front of them, Still, I couldn't imagine having their narrow field of vision. Using binocular vision goggles, at the very Museum of History tour Sarah had photographed, I have felt blind. The world had been a claustrophobic mess, and every person snuck up on me. The scientists used a visual translator to pass the text's meaning, and recalled at once. The once illegible Venlil script now imparted its grave warning. I hoped Sarah could keep her wits, because I was losing my own. "We've got to go," I stammered. "There's no telling how many ships are coming, and it's probably the Arxor. Did Isith betray us? Sarah, let's go." The human drew a shaky breath. "I'm not leaving without Hi-C. Every second we're here, our risk of being caught in a stampede or bombed." Sarah wasn't listening to my response. Her legs were dashing in the opposite direction of the exits. My ears could pick up other Gaians scrambling to retrieve their rescues. Even in my fear-stricken state, I recognized that bringing the former cattle to a bunker would be a problem. They see human refugees unmasked, and there wouldn't be a chance with the plan reveal. They were going to be panicked trauma victims, locked in an enclosed space with predators. This was a worst-case scenario. I hoped the Gaian volunteers offered explanations now, before the truth became evident. It was difficult to collect my thoughts, but I was cogent enough not to leave Sarah to her own devices. I managed to chase after her, retracing the path to Hi-C's room. The human was collecting the photo stack off the bed. She stuffed the images underneath her arm haphazardly. Without hesitation, Sarah reached for Hi-C. That elicited an ear-piercing shriek from the Venlil, who thrashed around in panic. I had enough sense to fetch a mild sedative and hand it to Sarah. There was no chance the historian would cooperate with a predator carrying her. The scientist jammed the needle into a vein and scooped the forcibly relaxed Hi-C up. I wrapped my tail around Sarah's leg just in case I lost control. The last thing I needed was to get separated from her and get swept up in a stampede. The human muttered reassurances and jogged in the direction of the exit. "Where is your car, Tava?" the Terran barked. I studied my reflection in her mask. "The driver should be waiting in the pickup area if he didn't panic. I'm sorry. I usually have control of my instincts, but Arxor raids are traumatic for me." "I know that, Governor. You're doing great, okay? I've got you both." The Predator's warm stability coaxed me along into the outdoors. UN security personnel, who lurked in my vicinity ever since the Memorial Stampede, greeted us. They had just been rushing into the building, determined to evacuate me after I kept them waiting. Sarah allowed me to assist with carrying Hi-C, and I let the humans herd me to my car. The Terrans roughly pushed my head down, since the back door was already open. I dropped into a passenger seat and tried to steady my breathing. Venlil Prime was under attack by an unknown assailant. We had to reach a bunker at once. I also needed to establish communications with my people in order to make relevant decisions. The UN security guards dove in, after shoving Sarah and Hi-C inside. I huddled against the human scientist and shot a concerned glance at the rescue. This was not going to be a pleasant experience once we were all caged inside a bunker. That was assuming the three of us could get to safety unharmed. "How close is the nearest bunker?" I asked the driver. The Venlil flicked his ears. 5 minutes, ma'am. I'll do my best to avoid pedestrians." I cast my gaze out the window. Sarah removed her mask, given that the security staff weren't obscure for the occasion. It was selfless of the human to return for Hi-C. I hoped that Noah and Glim were able to get to safety as well. The Terran ambassador could hunker down in the mansion's bunker at least. Glim's fate was reliant on the other caretakers getting him out. My frightened brain pondered the reason for our attack. Until we learned more about the assailants, and the confrontation had played out, there was no determining why Venlil Prime was under siege. If anyone could protect the civilian populace, it was our closest allies. Humanity wasn't going to let our homeworld suffer easily. All we could do, stuck on the ground amidst a major metropolis, was fast-track a route to shelter.